Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, best-selling author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
When you think about retirement, the biggest concern of most hardworking savers I meet is how to stop working and replace the paycheck offered by their employer all their working lives with a new form of paycheck, complements of their 401k plan. It's a great question and one that is always in the forefront of my discussions with the many savers I meet each week, whose question always has a tagline, and it goes something like this. Tony, when I do take money out of my 401k in retirement, how much in taxes will Uncle Sam take? To which I always reply, well, that's easy. The more you make, the more he takes. And with more than 11,000 people turning 65 each and every day, you can bet your 401k on the fact that you are on the radar of the financial world with a ton of advisors promising you the moon, with ideas they say will save or even sometimes eliminate the taxes you will owe on your 401k plan, which in some cases can be the case, but in most cases, you're going to be sold a bill of goods. Which is why today I'm going to cover 3 different cases I worked on recently of savers who approached me for a second opinion on what I refer to as the tax tumor, and how different all 3 of these saver situations are, and how we at Tony Walker Financial might address reducing their tax tumor, while at the same time making sure that they don't get too hung up on it. You see, while taxes are important to address and dealing with one's tax tumor is certainly a must, it is not the only reason you should turn your 401k over to just any advisor. That's because saving on taxes is a piece of the retirement game plan you will need, but it's not the only piece of the game plan in terms of how much you can comfortably spend each week, each month of that money that you are going to take out of that tax-infested 401k plan. It's like a tax attorney told me years ago when I first got into the retirement planning business. He said this: if the only reason you are making a financial decision is solely based on saving taxes, in the end, you'll more than likely be disappointed in that decision. Which proves my point of why having a game plan, along with an experienced local retirement planning firm to help you deal with your tax tumor, is a must. Stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. This is the Worry-Free Retirement, and we will be right back. In the financial world, advisors are often divided between 2 categories: money managers or annuity specialists. My question is, why not have both? At Tony Walker Financial, we specialize in investments and securing guaranteed income you can never outlive. You know, we're more than just annuities. So if you're retired or retiring soon, why don't you give us a call or log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Did you realize that you have a partner when it comes to your 401k plan? His name is Uncle Sam, and depending on your overall tax bracket and income, his fair share of this partnership involving your 401k could be as high as 40% when you include both federal and state income taxes. In essence, what you see on that 401k, IRA, 403b, 457, or TSP statement is money that are in these plans, assuming they are pre-tax, that is not really all of your money. This partnership and the taxes buried inside your 401k is what I refer to as a tax tumor, a cancerous situation that reveals the following. As your 401k grows in value, so too does the size of your tax tumor. And unlike your normal tumor that you and I might get in our body, the tax tumor doesn't ever go away, even after we die. That's right, this tax tumor gets passed on to your kids when you die for them to then have to deal with. So what I thought we'd do is take a look at 3 different cases we worked on recently to see the effects of the tax tumor on these 3 savers' income and their financial circumstances. Oh, by the way, the folks that need to pay close attention to this and these 3 cases, this would be the following. Anyone already retired, anyone who is thinking of retiring in the next few years, anyone at or near the age of 59 and a half, or maybe someone who's recently been offered a buyout or to leave their work early. You see, folks, we live in what's called a progressive tax system. So the more money that comes piling onto your tax return actually can throw you in what's called a higher tax bracket. I call this tax bracket creep. These rates are as high as 37%. But nevertheless, over the long term, my concern with tax rates is they're probably going to go up in the future. I mean, where are we going to get revenue to pay off $39 trillion in debt? So this is something you need to focus on now. Even if you're not retired, you need to be thinking ahead of this and realizing that down the road, these taxes could go up. And as you're going to see with these 3 different cases, the people are affected differently based on their individual circumstances. Okay, so case number 1, this is a 57-year-old married male. So let me just kind of read the parameters here. Incidentally, he married, like me, to Susan, his high school sweetheart. He didn't marry Susan, actually, but he married his high school sweetheart. Now, she stayed home and raised the kids until about 10 years ago when they kind of felt like they needed more long-term health insurance, so she went to work in the school system where she could have health insurance for both her and him if he retired early. He worked out of high school. He's been with the same manufacturer ever since. He's getting to a point, he said, that he's getting a little burned out. He's heard, since he's not 59 and a half yet, that if he takes money out of a 401k now, there's a 10% tax penalty, so he wanted to go over that. He makes about $75,000 a year. His wife likes working in the school system, and while she doesn't make a lot of money, again, the health insurance is taken care of, plus she's off during the summers and those types of things, so she likes her job. She actually will be eligible for a pension in about 7 years, so she plans on working another 7 years so she can get that pension. If he were to retire now, he would get $2,500 a month. So there was a pension that was offered to him when he started work, so he's got that going for him if he decides to retire. He also has about $800,000 in his 401k plan. So this guy has been socking money away. The market over time has done good, so he's got a lot of money in there, although actually in this case, he didn't think it was much money. I thought it was a lot of money. Then they recently offered him a buyout. So here's a guy thinking about retiring, doesn't think he can pull it off. They offered him a buyout, and here's the catch. If he stays till the end of the year, he's going to get an $80,000 bonus to stay. And he's like, I think I got to stay. So he's going to stay, but he wants to know if he can take this buyout, because you got to let him know pretty soon. You can't just let it waver. He's got to tell them something. Of course, look at the initial numbers. I've done this for years, folks. I said, no worries, you're going to be able to take the buyout. Tell him you'll take the buyout. Now, we're going to work on an income plan to show him the details. But basically, he's going to probably take the buyout. He is having some health issues. No wonder. He's been working, on the plant floor for all these years. And he basically said, Tony, I'm burned out. I just want to enjoy life a little bit and kind of spend more time with the family. And then he brought up the tax tumor to me. He said, I'm worried about this tax tumor on this $800,000 401k. It's all pre-tax. What in the world am I going to do about it? So kind of let's look at this case in detail. His condition is what we call burned out on work, and to the rescue is all of a sudden a buyout. So he's very, very intrigued about this buyout, and it has spurred him on to thinking, maybe I need to retire, okay? The diagnosis for me, after glancing at this, and again, folks, I have worked on over 5,000 written game plans. I've seen nearly 20,000 people in person. I've done this over 40 years. I know what I'm looking at, and I can quickly diagnose the situation. And as I told him, you could easily retire now. Now, again, there's been some other work that's gone into this. I won't share in detail that we talked about. Gets a little personal, but I knew for a fact this was a good time to him to do that. And then he said, well, Tony, I'm only going to be 57, and I'd like to take some money out of this 401k, but I don't want to incur that 10% tax penalty since I'm under the age of 59 and a half. Again, we're very experienced in something. This is a government freebie, if you will. It's called a 72T election. You got to know what you're doing. But yes, we can send him regular installments to supplement the pension, supplement his wife's income. Again, she's going to be still working, and avoid that 10% tax penalty. Pretty cool case. If that sounds something like you, we need to talk. All right, let's see. Let's go to case number 2. Yeah, we're moving right along. This is working out well. Okay. Now this, again, these are cases I've worked on, folks. This is all I do every day of the week. I meet 20 to 30 people per week. So I'm in the trenches. We've got great fiduciaries that are on standby to help once people become clients, but I'm on the front lines meeting with all these people. Here's a 64-year-old divorced single female. Let's read a little bit about her situation. For the first 20 years of her marriage, she stayed home while her husband worked. He made big money, we'll just put it that way, but they went through a divorce. Okay, married 20 years now. She had to go back to work because she needed extra income, makes about $40,000 a year. Over that period of time, not only has she put money in her 401k, but through something called a quadro, she was able to get some of her husband's 401k and move it into her name. So she has about $400,000 in a 401k. Has about $20,000 in savings, as you can imagine. Hard to save a lot of money making $40,000 a year. Her home is in good shape. However, she is going to need a car. Like our last gentleman, she's just pretty burned out on work. She also recently received a $200,000 inheritance from her mother. Now, I asked her specifically about that. About $100,000 is what we call after-tax money. Another $100,000 is an IRA that she hasn't paid taxes on. Keep that in mind. She's in very good health. Has a child, though, struggling financially and thinking about allowing her child, who's divorced, and her grandchild, the child's child, to move in with them because she's trying to help them out and they're having trouble out there. Her ex still makes really good money, and she asked if there's any way she could draw on his Social Security since they'd been married more than 10 years. I told her that she could, and we're going to look at the numbers, but more than likely, it's going to be more advantageous for her to draw on his Social Security and give her more income because of the 10-year marriage rule there on the divorce. She still owes $150,000 on her house. It's at a 6% interest rate. She's wondering if she should pay that off with inheritance money. She doesn't understand the tax tumor, and she has this $400,000. In fact, when I started talking to her about taking money out, I think she was under the impression she didn't owe any taxes. So, and remember, she's single. I told her if she wasn't careful, she could move into that 22% bracket pretty quickly, which she was not aware of. So, and she is worried about the cost of health insurance if she leaves her employer's plan. So getting ready to approach 65, that's not going to be a big deal. She can get a Medicare supplement. We have resources to help her get those. So in her case, here's what I'm going to recommend she do. Pay off the house. That'll help her cash flow, get out from under that 6% note, and use the mother's money to do that. And we're going to help her figure out the taxes on that. So again, folks, Tony Walker Financial is a full-service planning firm. I've seen about everything under the sun. I've done this so long. Every once in a while, somebody will throw me a little curveball that I hadn't seen. But I know these situations well. I can size them up very well. I personally work on the game plan. We have that wonderful income planning department who is dedicated to making sure these income plans match your situation. That's another thing, folks. You folks are on YouTube watching all these crazy videos. There is no way you should be taking advice from a YouTube video without meeting with a retirement planning specialist to make sure all these ideas they're throwing out are suited for you. In fact, we're going to see that in the next case. So in summary, let's look at what I came up with. Her condition, retire now, take care of her daughter and granddaughter. That kind of, by the way, that kind of covers the live well, die broke philosophy. Folks, many of you are putting off doing things deep down you know you should do. I would encourage you to order a copy of Live Well, Die Broke. The whole philosophy is enjoy your money while you still can. You can't take this stuff with you. And I'm telling you, with the tax tumor, the longer you leave that money alone, it's going to come back to bite you. So enjoy the money now. Get with a retirement specialist and take a hold of that philosophy of Live Well, Die Broke. I guarantee you'll be glad you did. Diagnosis, take advantage of ex-husband's Social Security income. And again, treatment, we're going to pay off that house with the inheritance, and we're going to turn that 401k plan into that beloved mailbox money. Okay, good stuff. Again, if this kind of fits your situation a little bit, give us a call. Go online, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Be happy to talk to you at no obligation.
You're listening to The Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and I've helped thousands of savers determine
when to retire, and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number 877-499-9255. We look forward to talking with you soon. All right, finally, case number 3, 72-year-old married couple. All right, this is an interesting case. Let me read this. He is 72. Actually, she's around 68. He has over $1.5 million in his IRA. Okay, never touched it, doesn't need the money. She has about $200,000 in her IRA. Between his pension and their Social Security, plus they have some CDs kicking off interest. Incidentally, all these high interest rates on these CDs, throwing some of you on a higher tax bracket, so kind of be careful of that. But anyway, total income's around $100,000 a year. I mean, they don't have any debt. They don't really do a lot anymore. That's plenty of money. But as he puts it, this IRA is a concern because he knows taxes are due. In fact, last year he watched a YouTube video, followed up with some broker at the bank, and he converted $150,000 of his IRA over to a Roth. Well, little did he know when he did that, there was complications with IRMA. That's now his Medicare premiums went up. He had to pay a bunch of taxes, which threw him in a higher bracket. So again, there was really no thought to the rippling effect of converting this Roth. But he just did it anyway, and he told me, he said, man, I probably shouldn't have done that. But again, that's what happens when you rush out and do stuff without a game plan from a trained retirement specialist, all right? He is worried that next year, when he turns 73, that's the age that he must take money out of that 401k. That's called the Required Minimum Distribution, or RMD. He doesn't understand that. He's concerned about that. He does have about $350,000 in after-tax money in savings and CDs, so he's got plenty of liquidity. 3 children, 2 of them are doing great. One of them's not doing so well financially. He is really worried about that child and feels like he needs to help them. So a couple of things here. He's wondering if he should give some money to the kids now. He has the pension that could go down to 50% if he dies first. His wife's going to lose her Social Security if he dies. He is a little concerned about that. He's had some health issues. He had cancer in the past. He's in remission, but he's thinking, I want to make sure my wife has plenty of money if I were to die first. He doesn't know how to look at that. And then finally, she's got a very long life expectancy in her family. She's 4 years younger, and she is worried about possibly one day going to a nursing home and just eroding their wealth. So, pretty complicated case. This stuff, folks, is right up our alley. This is the kind of stuff we love to work on cases like this. We know what we're doing on these kind of tax planning cases. So let's take a look at that. The condition is he's got a humongous tax tumor. Folks, on $1.5 million, I mean, let's just say he wouldn't do this, obviously, but let's say he tried to take it all out or convert it this year. He's going to owe 40% on $1.5 million. What is that, $500,000-$600,000 in taxes? Yeah, that would be crazy to do that. Now, the problem is if he passes away and his wife and him don't use it, the kids are going to be saddled with the tax tumor, and they're going to have to deal with it, listen, in 10 years. That's the new law. That's not good for the kids who might inherit that. Diagnosis, there is no written game plan. This is the biggest obstacle I see. People come to me. They may have a broker. They got an advisor. They bought something from a guy at a dinner seminar, whatever it is, but they have no written game plan to help them make these crucial decisions that you're going to have to make in retirement. Obviously, the RMD is not being planned out. Now, all kinds of cool stuff on his treatment plan we can do. We could do something called a QCD, Qualified Charitable Distribution, which would go to charity directly with his RMD. That would help his taxes. We could accelerate money coming out. You might say, wait a minute, isn't he close to the 22% bracket? Yes. If we accelerated distributions, it could affect his IRMA. It could throw him in a 22% bracket. But the way I look at it, these tax brackets are still very, very low. And this $1.5 million IRA with this huge tax tumor ain't going anywhere. And in my view, probably over the long time, it's just going to make matters worse. So we would accelerate and do some gifting strategies, and then we do what's called immediate pay down. So that's part of what we do in our office, is to look at those strategies, tie the income back, and try to keep that tax tumor mitigated and as low as possible. So folks, if all this looks good to you, but you don't have a retirement planning staff that can be there for you to help you, why don't you do this? Take advantage of contacting me, Tony Walker. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. We're going to set up that no obligation 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And if you'd rather just give us a call anytime, that's fine at 877-499-9255. This is the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. Is the person you're entrusting with your life savings a fiduciary? In other words, is that advisor legally obligated to work in your best interest, or could they be working in their own? It's a critical question, especially when you consider how your money will be invested in retirement. My name is Tony Walker, and at Tony Walker Financial, we take the responsibility of being a fiduciary very serious. And while other advisors choose to fly under the radar of the proper government authorities charged with regulating advisors, we do not. So before you make the pivotal decision of investing your life savings with an advisor who may not be required to work in your best interest, contact us by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call anytime, toll free at 877-499-9255. Oh, speaking of tumors, man, did my wife Susan have a huge scare following a recent knee surgery procedure. To make a long story short, as she was coming out of knee surgery, they had a dickens of a time getting her oxygen levels back to normal. After days of serious breathing issues, a CT scan was performed, revealing a huge mass in her thyroid, which was severely occluding her airway. Not truly knowing what this potential tumor was, a biopsy revealed it was not malignant, but simply a goiter, as they call it, that needed to come out and pronto, which she had another surgery to remove it, as the surgeon discovered that once he got in there, this mass was actually the size of a grapefruit. The point being, Susan didn't even know this tumor existed, and neither did anyone just viewing Susan from the outside world. In other words, she looked perfectly normal, and to the naked eye, the tumor was neither visible nor painful. Rather, it took another circumstance, her coming out of surgery not able to breathe, to detect her tumor, and then after seeing what was going on, someone with the expertise in such matters to safely remove it, which is our role at Tony Walker Financial, not to deal with tumors inside one's body, but rather the tumor of taxes buried inside our accounts held by our retirement accounts of our clients. Those taxes that have yet to been paid. And just like Susan's tumor, if left unchecked, this tax tumor of yours is going to get bigger and bigger over time. Whether it be a 401k, 403b, 457, TSP, IRA, or listen, even a lump sum pension that is yet to be taxed. The question is, how big is your tax tumor? Well, just like relying on a surgeon to find out, you too will need to meet with a trained retirement planning specialist to find out first how much you will one day owe Uncle Sam for all those years you put off paying taxes. And then secondly, and most surprisingly to many savers in retirement, the rippling effects that your tax tumor will create in the way of higher costs elsewhere. In other words, not only will your tax tumor grow alongside the growth of your account, but the rippling effects might even be worse than the taxes themselves. So what I thought we would do, we're going to take a look at some of the rippling effects that I see on a daily basis. Now, why am I focusing on these larger amount of accounts? Well, quite frankly, some of you contact us and you might have $60,000, $70,000 in a 401k IRA, which is fine, but generally you're not going to have any tax issues with that. That's because in the tax world, the more you make or the more you have, the more the government's going to try to take. My gosh, folks, you don't understand something. There's two problems. Number one, we don't know what these taxes are going to go to in the future. Right now, most of them are very, very low, comparatively speaking. But even if you start out in a lower bracket, let's say you're in the 12% bracket, when you start taking out large distributions from a pre-tax account, every bit of it is taxable. It goes on your tax return, and it can cause what I call tax bracket creep. In other words, that money can throw you into higher brackets, and we can show you strategies to try to keep you from creeping into these high tax brackets. Next, this is a huge issue. With over 3,500 clients, many of our clients are retired. We have a lot of people pass away, quite frankly. We had 67 death claims that we had to take care of in 2025. So what happens is, here's how this kind of plays out. Our clients have large and significant IRAs, okay? They pass away. In many cases, I meet their adult children for the first time. That's right. Generally, they come in to meet with me or one of the other fiduciaries. We help explain what their parents had, and if their IRAs, we have to share the bad news with them. Guess what the bad news is? The tax tumor didn't die with their parents. The tax tumor gets passed off to them. And with the new laws, unfortunately, the government is forcing these adult children to take out that money within a 10-year period of time following their parents' death. What's the problem with that? Well, let's say somebody out there is still working, making good income. They'll look at me sometimes and go, Tony, I don't need this money nor want it. The problem is they have to take it. So, moral of the story, folks, when you die, unlike the tumors that we might have in our bodies die with us, this tax tumor does not. It gets passed to your kids. So my thoughts are, why wouldn't you want to address it now? Let us help set up a strategy to try to minimize these taxes to your children upon your death. Whether you've recently lost a spouse or been widowed for years, our experience in assisting retirees who are going it alone is second to none. Talk to me, Tony Walker, by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. In John chapter 5, there's an interesting scene that plays out as a paralytic man who for the past 30 years has been patiently waiting for someone to assist him in getting into the healing waters at Jerusalem. In verse 6, we see this poor man's plight, where Jesus comes along and asks a simple question. Do you want to get well? Now in verse 7, we must assume that he does want to get well because he tells Jesus that he would get into the water if others would quit jumping in line ahead of him. Knowing no one is going to help this man until he helps himself, Jesus replies this way, then get up, pick up your mat, and walk. In the book of Acts, chapter 3, verses 6 through 8, we see a similar instance where this time Peter, after seeing a lame individual in need of help, says this to the man in need of this assistance. Silver or gold I do not have, but what I have to give you in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, get up and walk. Next comes the response from the lame man. He takes Peter's hand, and at once the man is made strong. He then springs up to his feet and begins to walk and goes about the temple of courts, praising God. And such is the way of life when faced with adversity and the realization that the world is not offering any help. And while we help lots of savers get a handle on how to deal with the tax tumors buried inside their 401k plans, I can't say they necessarily jump for joy and praise us for it. But I can attest to the fact that many of our clients do tell their friends and coworkers about the work we do in reducing their tax tumor. So what is the Bible teaching us about this notion of feeling lame or stagnant in our adversity with nothing we feel we can do about it? Well, the late great theologian Charles Spurgeon says this about those who wait for others to help them in their time of need. He says they wait in vain and watch for nothing. My thoughts, I believe that faith in God's ability to heal us also relies on us picking up our mat and walking with our own 2 feet. In other words, you are not going to get anywhere if you just sit there and do nothing, hoping someone else is going to come along to help. The world, unfortunately, is crueler than that. In fact, sometimes the world thinks they are helping us by helping us, rather than telling us, as Jesus and Peter did, to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get moving. To ditch that security blanket that is holding us back and instead lean on the grace and knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. And that's right, get going. And yes, this taking action to improve our lives also includes dealing with the inevitable taxes you and I are going to owe and your family's going to owe on all of those tax-infested pre-tax 401k and IRA plans. So if that's you, maybe you're that person who has more than $250,000 of savings that has yet to be taxed, and you're ignoring the fact that you have a tax tumor. My question is, do you want to get well? Do you want to meet with someone experienced in dealing with tax tumors? A local retirement planning firm with 20 full-time employees, 2 of whom are certified in the art of tax planning. Then do this. Get up out of that lazy boy, grab your phone or computer right now and log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Take advantage of something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. Hey, internet not your thing? No big deal. We've got operators standing by 24/7. You can call us toll-free to set up that free phone call with you and I. Just call 877-499-9255. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. But you remember, between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.